Researcher at the TRT World Research Centre, Michael Arnold, is there. Michael, just to pick up on this issue of FETO schools, we know that in some countries, Turkey has gained a sympathetic ear, and FETO schools in those countries have been shut down, or at least are still running, but are not run by FETO anymore. But in the United States, that sympathy appears to be lacking, and as well as some Western European countries. What's going on? How come Turkey hasn't had the hearing that it feels it deserves in terms of explaining to other countries what FETO is and what FETO does?
Yeah, and I think this really gets at the core of one of the main issues here, and I think there's a number of reasons for this. Some of which are more political and social, and others are more technical. On a more technical level, there's this issue of the notion of terrorism. Counterterrorism orthodoxy doesn't seem to be able to account for an organization or a movement such as the Gulenists. Most counterterrorism practitioners and experts have a hard time wrapping their heads around the idea that an organization that publicly appears to be primarily a social movement, an educational movement, engage in educational activity and community outreach activities, could also represent an immediate and strategic security threat. Moreover, the strategies employed by the movement, including infiltration of state bodies over a long period of time, are of course not the typical modus operandi of what we generally understand to be terrorist organizations. So here I think we have an issue of defining terms and a lack of a common understanding of what a terrorist organization actually is. On a more political and social level, while security agencies in North America may very well be aware of the true natures of the activities of the organization, convincing political officials that the group that presents publicly primarily as an educational organization that's open to the world, one that media in the US and Canada in particular have described as espousing a philosophy that blends Islamic mysticism with democracy, whatever that means exactly, this has proven to be a challenge, and the opaque nature of the organization that other guests have pointed to has only served to further complicate this picture.
How much of a negative impact has all of this had on relations between Ankara and Washington?
Yeah, and that's a really key point here because, needless to say, despite the goodwill that exists between the two countries and, of course, a historic strategic partnership, this issue in particular continues to be a major irritant in bilateral relations. In the 5 years since the coup attempt, particularly as the question of Gulen's extradition remains unresolved, as our correspondent was just mentioning, and the U.S. has seemingly become a safe haven for the organization's activities, suspicion of the U.S. among, of course, the Turkish population has only increased. In particular, questions surrounding Gulen's connections to the American intelligence community have gained currency among certain circles in Ankara. For example, this past February, Turkey's interior minister said very bluntly that it was plain as day that America was behind the July 15 coup attempt and that FETO carried it out at their behest. He also told a Turkish newspaper that since he became interior minister, he's seen FETO's presence wherever America is influential. So I think this points to the level of tension that this is built. And while there has been, some evidence presented linking the CIA to the Gulenist movement, the issue is arguably, and in my opinion, perhaps more importantly, about perceptions. As U.S. Professor Danny Roderick pointed out in the immediate aftermath of the coup attempt, the testimony from Turkey's present defense minister, Hulusi Akar, that the putschists had offered to put him in direct contact with Gulen should have been more than enough to at the very least kickstart a really serious investigation with the possibility of leading to extradition. Of course, U.S. officials continue to deny any foreknowledge of the events of that night, which may or may not be the case. But the point here being that the fact that Gulen himself remains sheltered in the U.S. has increasingly raised questions about U.S. denials among Turkish officials. Just to finish off, I think it is important to point out that despite these ongoing tensions as a result of this issue, the U.S. and Turkish governments continue to work together to bridge their differences and further their common interests. Of course, Turkey remains a key NATO member and a key regional partner for the U.S. And it is, it's important to point out that moving forward, it's vital to enhance the confidence-building measures between both parties to address the remaining mistrust and uncertainties that are resulting from the July 15th coup attempt.
Michael, thanks so much indeed. From our TRT World Research Centre, speaking to us from Vancouver, Michael Arnold.